name is Nicole. I'm a tea writer and educator, and I'm here to help you learn more about tea. Today I wanted to talk about 5 easy and inexpensive ways that you can step up your tea game. As you guys can see, I love tea things. I have lots of tea things, but I'm also a really big advocate that you don't need a lot of stuff to make good tea at home. First on my list is a thermometer. This can be incredibly inexpensive. I actually use an old meat thermometer that I've had for a really long time. I bought it at the grocery store for like $5 or something like that. When you're making certain kinds of tea, especially green tea or in particular matcha, your water temperature can really make a difference in the quality of the brewed tea that you're making. It also really helps with cutting down on bitterness, which is why a lot of people think they don't like green tea. It's not a huge investment, but it's definitely something that will make it much easier for you to be able to dial your tea in. Next on my list is an electric tea kettle. For years I did use kind of your old-fashioned stovetop kettle that whistles, but as I got more into tea, I realized that my kettle was not consistent. The temperature that the water was when it whistled varied quite a bit, and it also never quite got to fully boiling. So depending on the type of tea that you want, that could definitely be an issue. It does not have to be fancy. So you guys know I really love my fellow Corvo EKG. It is a fancy kettle. You don't even need a thermometer if you have this kind of kettle because it lets you select the temperature, and also has lots of other functions that are just nice to have, but they're not essential. This is a kettle that I picked up at Home Goods for like 20 bucks for when I teach classes, and it is just a straight boil water kettle, but it is a really nice electric kettle. One advantage of electric kettles over the stovetop ones is that they're much more efficient. You're not going to be waiting as long for your water to heat up to make tea. Personally, when I am shopping for kettles, I look for ones that have as little plastic coming into the contact with the water as possible, and that's because it does affect the taste of the water. It may not be something that you'll pick up right away, but as your palate becomes more refined and you taste more and more tea, you might actually notice that you do taste the plastic in your tea. So definitely I do prefer ones that are more metal based, but everybody has their own preferences and what they're able to access. Whichever way you go, an electric kettle is definitely a great tool to help you step up your tea game. Next on my list is a gram scale. You can find these very inexpensively on Amazon or lots of other places, but it really does make a difference when it comes to measuring your tea. I think I'm going to make a separate video to explain this further. Basically, a teaspoon is not an accurate way of measuring tea because tea does not come in a uniform size or shape. If you're measuring flour for baking, flour is flour. It's kind of a consistent thing, and that's why it's easy to measure. With tea, your leaves can be small, they can be large, they can be twisted, they can be really tightly curled. There's so much variability that it is hard to get that accurately with one unit of measure. With tea, if you're measuring in grams, it's much more accurate, and similar to the way that pour-over coffee people will measure their coffee grounds and their water, it helps you kind of just dial in. You don't have to measure every time, and over time you'll even kind of develop the ability to guesstimate just by looking at tea how much you need. But it is a really great tool, especially when you're first getting started. Next up on my list is smaller teacups. There's absolutely nothing wrong with a nice big cup of tea. I have tons of mugs that I use, and I love to just brew a cup of tea and sit on the couch and watch something on TV and relax with my husband. But it does change the way that you taste tea. When you're using a bigger cup like this, we have a tendency to gulp it, where you're kind of bypassing a lot of your taste buds when you do that. If you use a smaller cup, purely by it being smaller, changes the way that you taste. You're more likely to take smaller sips. You're going to take your time with the tea. You're really going to taste everything there is. It's not necessarily an every occasion thing, not an every tea thing, but I do recommend picking up some smaller teacups to see how that changes how you appreciate your tea. Last but not least, I recommend getting a notebook or some kind of way of keeping track of the teas that you taste. So that can be a journal. This is one made by Teawala that I really enjoy. I did an interview with Mona who designed this on the channel, so I'll link that up there in case you'd like to check that out. It does not have to be a fancy one like this. You can use any old notebook, something from the dollar store. For my tea blog notes, I actually use a digital way of keeping notes. So I use Google Keep as a way of being able to access my tea notes from both my phone and my computer, and I can also search previous notes. So it really comes in handy for me as a tea blogger, but that could also be an option for you as well. Let me know in the comments if any of these things have helped you on your tea journey. I'd also really love to hear if there's any tea topics that you want to know more about, as I'm always looking for ideas for future videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.